investment on infrastructure. Now, as the Prime Minister led NDA completes 10 years, let's take a quick look at the budgets in the Bharatiya Janata Party led regime and how they were different from those during the UPA regime. First up, let's look at some of the markers. Capital expenditure. Financial year 2014, the budget was 3.92 lakh crore. In 2025, 11.11 crore. Let's look at the next marker. Agriculture budget. 21,933 crore just about 10 years ago. Now it is 1,25,036 crore. Let's look at the CPI inflation, Consumer Price Index. 10% in 2013, down to about 5.65% till November 2023. These are some important markers. Under the UPA, 304.03 billion were the FDI inflows. Now, as per the DPIIT news reports, under PM Modi in the last 10 years, provisional, it's 642.21 billion. That's the number that we're looking at. Under the UPA, financial year 2013-14, it's 6,38,596 crores of the net direct tax collections. That's ballooned to 16,63,686 crore under in the last 10 years under PM Narendra Modi. Under the UPA, 2013-14, 29.17% was the poverty headcount ratio. Now it's down to 11.28% in 2022-23. Now these are all audited numbers and put out numbers that's been put out. We put out the source there too, as far as airports. And as per the Ministry of Civil Aviation, there were 74 airports in 2014. That's nearly doubled to 148 airports across the country. Highways, as per the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, 91,287 kilometers of road, 1,46,145 kilometers of road. Mobile manufacturing. This is data as put out by MyGov. 2 factories in 2014, 200 plus factories in 2023. These are the numbers that we have. Now in such a case, let's go across. We should have a very, very august panel and it's a straight face-off between Jayant Sinha ji, Chairperson for the Standing Committee on Finance, and also T.S. Singh Dev, the former Deputy Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh. He should be joining us any moment now. Jayant Sinha ji, namaste. Jai Hind. My name is Anand. Thank you very, very much, sir. Good to speak with you after a while. But if you were to pit UPA versus NDA, are these markers enough or is there more in comparison? Why would the opposition believe that this government is all dressing up and window dressing and not actually doing something concrete for Bharat's economy?
It is a no contest walkover between the NDA government and the UPA. The UPA government inherited an economy in very good shape, growing at 8% a year, with strong investment, very good inflation numbers, very good current account deficit. The economy was in very good shape in 2004. In 2014, when they departed, the economy was in the ditch. Growth was below 5%, inflation was roaring at 10%, current account deficit was over 3 or 4%, the rupee was in trouble. So they really destroyed and damaged the economy. We inherited that economy, an economy that was doing very poorly with a lot of structural problems, a financial system that was collapsing, and we totally repaired all of that. We fixed up the economy, we introduced very major reforms. We managed to get through a once-in-a-century pandemic because of COVID. We're dealing with 2 wars right now, and despite all of that, we have an economy that's growing over 7%. Every macroeconomic parameter is really, really good just now. From a fragile 5 country, we have become a top 5 country in the last 10 years. So as I said, it's a walkover, which is probably what the elections are also going to be between the NDA and the UPA, the Mahagathbandhan, because we have delivered on the ground, we have delivered on every statistic that matters to each and every Indian.
Now, some of the criticisms that's come from the Congress party, that these are the numbers of facts that are being window dressed, Jayant Sinha ji. T.S. Singh Dev ji should be joining us in the next 2 to 3 minutes. One of the aspects is created the fear of tax terrorism and the ED CBI raids. Now, this is something, and especially on India Inc. So, you've got the private sector running helter-skelter. There is a massive brain drain that has been triggered and they've been forced to move out of India. The other aspect is women have been pushed out of the workforce. The number of employed, unemployed and disguised unemployed, and also the women moving out of the active workforce. These are some very strong criticisms that are coming the government's way from the opposition. More importantly, saying that the government is actually destroying the demographic dividend, not enabling them and skilling them enough.
So Anand, you've raised a lot of different points. Let me take them one by one.
Ji.
Your first point was really about the income tax and CBI and
Tax
Enforcement
terrorism,
Directorate and so on. Let me be crystal clear about first the rates, then I'll come to taxes. But as far as the rates are concerned, please recognize that if there is corruption happening in a state that's ruled by the opposition, the police is in their control. Take my own home state of Jharkhand. There's been rampant corruption at levels that you cannot even fathom or imagine. Of course, we all saw the 350 crores of cash that was recovered in Rajya Sabha MP Dheeraj Sahuji's house. So there's rampant corruption going on. But local police, which is under the control of the state government, is going to do nothing. So we have no choice but to ask central agencies like income tax, like CBI, like Enforcement Directorate to go in and stop the corruption, because we have been very clear as a government. The Honorable Prime Minister has said, ki na khaunga, na khane dunga. So whenever we see this kind of rampant corruption, when there's nothing we can do with local police, we have to intervene with these central agencies. And that's essentially what has been happening. So that's point number one. Point number two, regarding your tax terrorism issue, we have streamlined taxation dramatically, and in fact the number of taxpayers has gone up from 3.25 crores to 8.25 crores. It's more than doubled. If you look at the number of people who were paying indirect taxes, that's gone from about 90 lakhs to 1.4 crores. So if there was tax terrorism, why would people be signing up to pay taxes? ईमानदार सरकार है हमारी, इसलिए लोगों को भरोसा है उस पे. That's why they are paying their taxes, and our tax collection has gone up dramatically as a percent of GDP as well. So our tax system is working very well. We've introduced many major reforms like faceless assessment, and just today the Honorable Finance Minister said that all of these very petty disputes, 25,000 rupee disputes, 10,000 rupee disputes, by which 1 crore taxpayers are afflicted, we are going to settle all of that, get rid of all of that. So this is how we've been providing tax relief. This is how we've been enabling people to pay their taxes and get their refunds electronically and very quickly. The people who are complaining about tax rates are the people who are not paying their taxes. And in fact, by doing these rates and ensuring compliance, we have in fact increased tax payments even as a percent of GDP. So that was your second point. Your third point is a very important point, and please give me some time to explain that to you. And that is about job creation. And on job creation, you talked about people leaving the country, you talked about women, you talked about young people and so on. But first, when we deal with job creation, let me talk about the fact that one of our 4 pillars is in fact the youth. And by that, of course, we mean not just job creation, but also their education, their training, their skilling, and then of course the job creation. And that job creation is either coming from formal sector jobs, it's coming from startups, or it's coming from self-employment of many different types. So we are looking at providing opportunities for young people across all these different dimensions. We are massively investing in their education and their training. We in fact created a ministry for skill development and entrepreneurship that did not exist. And as a result of that, if you actually look at the numbers, you look at the EPFO data for formal job creation, that is growing very fast. If you look at the data from the PLFS, the Periodic Labour Force Survey, what you find there is unemployment is declining, both urban and rural unemployment. You find that the labour force participation rate is increasing, and also, by the way, women participation in the labour force is also increasing. And by that, you can't just think of somebody going to work in IT services. You also have to recognize that through the Mudra loans, through self-help groups, we have created innumerable opportunities, particularly for women in rural areas, to find employment through rearing goats, through cattle, through self-help groups making food products like papad and achar and so on. These are also ways in which people are getting employed. And if you ask people, as I do all the time in Hazaribagh and my constituency, do you want to leave Hazaribagh and go work in a factory in Bangalore or Himachal Pradesh? Particularly women will say, no, we don't want to do that. We are quite happy with the self-help groups that have been created, the opportunities that have been created in fisheries, in goat rearing, in dairy farming, etc. The cooperatives that are getting formed, and they can thereby earn 8,000, 10,000 rupees a month more and be able to lead a very satisfying, fulfilling life in their own communities.
Ji.
So we have to understand what is happening with employment in a somewhat broader context, as opposed to just cherry picking numbers here and there. Please
See,
look at it in its totality.
Ji, so if that is the case, then why extend food security for 5 years? If there is employment that's being generated, women are being empowered. So why take this entire, this is a big subsidy. It's a huge cost that the government is undertaking when you say that I'm going to provide food security for 5 years.
Yes, and of course the Food Security Act was brought in by the UPA, and at that point 1 kg of rice was at 5 rupees and so on. Now we made it 0, right? But it was only 5 rupees previously in any case. So we've taken that burden away. And I know this is something the opposition keeps quoting all the time, but there's a very simple reason for doing it, which is that we want to end extreme poverty in India. We want to remove the plight of hunger from our community. Everybody can get free food grains. They can support themselves. And with the free food grains that they're getting right now, this frees up their money for doing things that are, for example, education related or health related, or to be able to invest in getting a goat, for example. So this frees up some of their resources and enables them to consume more, invest more, etc. So if we can provide them this, why wouldn't we want to do that? Number one. Number two, please also remember that we are producing surplus food grains. And if we don't use these food grains, they will rot in our warehouses. Much of it was being spoiled. And so we want to create a system where with good MSP, we buy from our farmers and then we can give it to our people so that they can eliminate hunger, they can get the support that they need, and they have this social safety net that enables them to lead a better life and to be able to invest in their children's education.
So you want to eradicate extreme poverty. The multidimensional poverty alleviation reports are very, very, commendable or congratulatory towards the achievement of this government. But the larger question would be that then what do you really want to keep the spread to nearly 80 crore people? That's the bigger question. So if you're saying out of a population of 140 crore, nearly 80 crore people want to be touched by the food security. So then there seems to be a mismatch. The other aspect is, if people are getting wealthier and there is more money to spend, then FMCGs are posting losses. So why is that happening?
So Anand, just because we're giving 80 crore people free food grains as a social safety net, you should not imagine therefore that poverty is going up, when all the data, whether it's the data from the Niti Aayog or it's the data from UNDP or it's the data from the World Bank, all of this data is showing very clearly that we are lifting people out of extreme poverty and we are giving them decent lives now because we are providing them all of this different support. So extreme poverty is coming down, and in fact when we get to 2047, our goal is that there will be no one in extreme poverty, whether you look at it on a multi-dimensional basis or whether you take the World Bank $2.15 a day as the benchmark. In all of those cases, we want to completely end extreme poverty, and the food grains and so on are a good way of ensuring that no one goes hungry at all. And as I said, the money that's freed up because you're not spending it on food grains is money that you can invest in education, you can invest it in your health and improve our human capital.
Well, we have T.S. Singh Devji joining us. T.S. Singh Devji, namaste. Jayant Sinha ji is with us. Thank you very much for your time. Can you hear me? This is Anand here, sir.
Yes, I can hear you.
Now, if you were to look at 10 years of the UPA and 10 years of the NDA, and this vote on account perhaps is a summary of what's been done under Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his government over the last 10 years, how would you assess it? T.S. Singh Devji, Jayant Sinha ji believes that they have done far better than the UPA.
24-25.
This is the interim budget, so and they're setting the groundwork for July 2024. Ji.
They are setting the groundwork for 1,000 years from now. We are not talking about it, we are not interested in 1,000 years from now. We were interested in 24-25, which was the election year and which was to be Mr. Modi's budget. It had been projected as Mr. Modi's budget, not even Sitharaman man's budget. Be whichever way it may be, it was the government's budget, and it was very disappointing as far as I am concerned, because I thought there would be something in terms of either reasons because of the election, there would be some major projects announced, some tangible money going to some sections of the people announced, but it was all about what happened in the last 10 years. That is not what we talk about in a budget for the coming year. So I think they had very little to give, whatever the reason. It may be because it was a vote on account, provision for the next 4 months, whatever. But very disappointing. Madam Sitharaman, she stressed on infrastructure. We've given 11.1% more for infrastructure. And I think the increase in revenue which she indicated, in direct and indirect revenue, was more than that. From 27 odd crores, 27.5 lakh crores to 30.8 lakh crores. And indirect taxes from 26 point some lakh crores to 30 lakh crores, 30 odd lakh crores. So the increase in revenue, when it is higher, even what she pegged as a major thrust was lower than the increase in revenue. So this is sort of not a nice word to use, but fuzzing figures and trying to get it across to the people that we are really doing something for you, where it doesn't come across. Cervical cancer, it's a scheme which is already in the pipeline, it is running. Even I was part of the health ministry in my state in Chhattisgarh. We've been at it for more than a year, and it is announced in this year as if it is a new initiative. Medical colleges, a committee is set up, it will look into new medical colleges, etc. So it was really disappointing. No change in tax structure. Corporate taxes, she put forward as an achievement that it was reduced from 30% to 22%. So help industry in whichever way, but not by reducing taxes. This was the time where large industry should have been given help to grow and give more to the people. The tax rate should have been certainly increased. You don't have revenue, where will you spend? Nothing I heard about devolution of money to ST, SC. Women's thing was also very vague. Jan Dhan Yojana, covering Anganwadi workers and Asha workers under the Ayushman scheme. They are already covered. They are not government servants. They are already covered. So it is surprising, everybody is covered under the Ayushman scheme who are under the SECC data. And I am sure all the Anganwadi workers and Asha workers in our state in Chhattisgarh, everybody was covered in any case. I would have been happy if universal health care was talked about even. There is no mention of universal health care. We talked about island tourism, and one island was mentioned. Northeast states, there was no mention of the Himalayan states. I don't want to quibble, or I don't want to talk from Congress BJP standpoint point of view, but it was really disappointing. There's nothing really in it. 1 crore households would be given solar panels, that's already announced. So really, really disappointing.
Jayant Sinha ji, how do you want to respond?
Well, I think Mr. Singh there was expecting a full budget, but this was of course just an interim budget for 4 months. The Honorable Finance Minister was very clear about it. That being said, there are 3 very important forward-looking initiatives which our government will be building on when we start a third term in June, July of this year. And those 3 very forward-looking, very important initiatives are: number 1, we said that we will continue to invest massively in capex, that it will go up by 11% to 11.1 lakh crores. Mr. Singh seems not very impressed with that number, but I would just urge him to consider that when we are in fact reducing our fiscal deficit from 5.8% to 5.1%. So we are very substantially reducing our expenditure, and even in that expenditure, this is being increased by 11%. So given the fact that the budget required this reduction in expenditure to meet fiscal deficit norms, this is a very forward-looking and very important investment because it has huge multiplier effects in the economy. So that's number 1. Number 2, I will say that the 1 lakh crores that has been promised for research and innovation is also very, very forward-looking. That, along with the support that we are providing our startups and our large companies is going to really position India well and is very, very important. The third thing that I will say also that is very forward-looking is all the steps that have been taken for green and sustainable development, whether it is the solar rooftop program, which will include 1 crore people, by the way, which is a very large number, 1 crore households. So that is a very major program. We've talked about compressed biogas. We've talked about offshore wind getting viability gap funding. So in all three of these areas, this has been very forward-looking and quite futuristic for a budget which is just an interim budget. And of course, when our government comes back to power in June, July, we will present a detailed roadmap for Viksit Bharat, as the Honorable Prime Minister
So
said.
is that confidence or arrogance, T.S. Singh Devji? How would you want to rebut that?
Let us not say arrogance, let us say his tone was, it didn't have arrogance, I wouldn't say arrogance, he was projecting it in a humble sort of a way, presuming of course that their party is coming to power, that's okay. But I mentioned that the fiscal deficit target has been put at 5.1%, that's okay. But the revenue that Madam Sitharaman presented was an increase of more than 11%. So saying that 11.1% more has been given from last year's budget to infrastructure is giving lesser in fact in terms of growth in the percentage of the budget revenue. Direct, indirect taxes, that is what I mentioned.
Gee, I have to thank you, gentlemen. With the promise, and I'll exact a promise of
Thank
a
you so
longer
much.
conversation very soon. Thank you so much, Jayant Sinha ji and T.S. Singh Devji. Thank you so much. Going straight across to Union Minister Shri Piyush Goyal ji joining us live here on the right stand. Piyush ji, namaste. Thank you very, very much for joining us here on CNN News 18. My first question to you, sir, is the opposition says there is arrogance reflecting. It's not confidence. How would you respond to that?
Anand, I think it is only about trust. We trust the people of India. We trust the people of India know what is best for them. And we trust that the people of India know that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has taken the country to greater heights of development. The last 10 years have been probably the best decade India has seen in a long time, from a fragile 5 to the top 5 countries in the world, strong macroeconomic fundamentals, fiscal prudence, and welfare of 140 crore Indians. It's a remarkable journey of 10 years. And as the people of India say, ye dil mange more, more of Modi, more of a better future.
Well, more of tax sobs, perhaps, Piyush ji, but let's come to the big announcement of capex being increased by 11.11% to 11.11 lakh crore. But the question is there focus on manufacturing? You're right in the thick of things, wearing a lot of hats. And if you want to be the third largest economy and a Viksit Bharat, we have to be a manufacturing hub.
Anand, when you do a focus on infrastructure, you're actually doing the focus entirely on manufacturing, because infrastructure helps A, create the demand for Indian goods and services, B, it helps Indian goods and services in terms of lower logistics costs, faster movement of people and goods, and helps make seamless connectivity across the country. So I think these all the various steps that you will see in the entire budget, they all strengthen the Make in India and the Make in India for the world plank. Clearly a budget which is going to be a big boost for domestic manufacturing.
But there is a huge spike in energy subsidies, Piyush ji. How much will geopolitics impact Bharat's growth story?
Well, we've seen the world crumble under the impact of the geopolitical problems, whether it was COVID pandemic, whether it was the various conflicts going on, the current Red Sea crisis. Amongst all this turbulence, India has emerged as a bright spot. We have shown tremendous resilience. Our ability to face these challenges has been put to test on more than one occasion. But in the last 10 years, we have come out very strong and given a message to the world that you can trust India to deliver.
The textile sector, manufacturing intensive, but we need a competitive edge. There are many who are worried that some of the SOPs or tax offs which were given may not extend beyond 31st of March. Is that going to hurt us?
No, there are absolutely no SOPs that any industry in India today is looking for. The production linked incentives gives us a little bit of a kickstart in certain new areas where there is a cost disadvantage, but it's not at all meant to be clutches. It's not meant to provide a permanent protection or support to the industry to be able to meet both domestic and international demand.
Ji.
Today, Indian industry is standing on its own feet. Our exports are growing on their competitiveness, on their high quality, and on the fact that people all across the world recognize that they can rely on India.
Ji.
To my mind, despite all these challenges, the textile sector is also going to grow. We have a huge exposition from 26th to 29th February in Delhi, both at the Bharat Mandapam and at Yashobhumi, where I would invite you to come and see. You will see the Indian textile industry from end to end, the 5F, farm to fiber to factory to fashion to foreign, all represented there. And you will see the vibrancy and the growth that Indian textiles is witnessing currently.
Ji, 2004, 14, 24, you've seen it all. So 10 years of UPA versus 10 years of NDA, which way does the balance swing, Piyush ji?
Anand, this is chalk and cheese. Balance तो तब किया जाता है कि जब थोड़ा बहुत भी दोनों तरफा में तालमेल हो. यहाँ पे तो आप इसको अगर पतड़े इसको वेइंग मशीन पे डालोगे या तराजू पे डालोगे तो मेरे ख्याल से कि जो मोदी जी ने 10 साल में काम किया है वो इतना भारी पड़ेगा कि यूपीए कितने भी नाम बदल ले, यूपीए के अंदरूनी कितने भी कोशिश कर ले झगड़े मिटाने की और एकजुट आने की, वो कभी उनके 10 साल के कार्यकाल प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के काम के सामने नजदीक भी नहीं पहुंचते. There are no patch to their tremendous work and the confidence that India has generated in the last 10 years. Today we are recognized the world over. The Indian passport has a value which has never been seen before. We are an important player in political situation in the world. The world recognizes India as an emerging superpower. The whole world wants to do business with India. ऐसी स्थिति भारत ने कब देखी थी? कब भारत के युवा युवतियों को ये महसूस हुआ कि हम ताकतवर हैं और हमें पूरी दुनिया हमारे सामने एक अपॉर्चुनिटी के रूप में पेश आती है? ये स्थिति मोदी जी ने भारत में पैदा की.
But opposition का कहना है destroyed democratic dividend story of Bharat, worsened the income inequality, flattened MSME sector, pushed women out of the workforce, and perhaps the most disastrous tenure that we've seen with a capital D. I'm quoting some opposition voices. Your thoughts?
Well, I think they live in an ivory tower. They cannot see that 4 crore poor people are today the proud owners of their own home. They don't recognize what the dignity of our sisters and mothers means when 11 crore families get a free toilet. For them, it's very difficult to understand the pain and trepidation of the women of the house sitting morning to night on a chula with smoke being taken into her body, 400 cigarettes of smoke, day in and day out. And how transformational the free gas connection can be to the poor or middle class person's lives. They don't realize that waterborne diseases has cost this country so dear, and water coming from a tap in each home, and we've grown from 3 crores to now almost 14 crore homes which have water from a tap. Another year and a half, every home will have water from a tap. Going forward, nearly every person in the country will be ensured health care, high quality education, roads reaching up to every village. digital connectivity in the length and breadth of India, 24-hour electricity connection, a dream for most Indians in the remotest part of India, borders getting strengthened with infrastructure reaching the remotest parts of India. Once upon a time called the last village, now recognized as the first village from where India starts. Our fishermen, our farmers, our Vishwakarmas, our factory workers, our startups, the youth of India today is empowered like never before. With 25 crore Indians coming out of multidimensional poverty, as recognized both by the Niti Aayog and international organizations involved in that study, are living testimony to the transformational impact the Modi government has had on people's lives. For the opposition, steeped in corruption, steeped in scandals, steeped in favoritism, always dividing society, for them it's very difficult to understand that the good work that Prime Minister Modi has done. Our calling card is a corruption-free India, Bhrashtachar Mukt Bharat, Tushtikaran Mukt Bharat, appeasement-free India, and India where there is no family rule, Parivarvad se Mukt Bharat, Sushashan or Garib Kalyan, good governance and welfare of the last man at the bottom of the pyramid. That is Prime Minister Modi's calling card.
Piyush Goyal ji, thank you so much for your time and always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much, sir. Namaste. Joining us now is Union Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar ji. Rajiv ji, namaste. Jai Hind and Jai Bharat. My name is Anand Narasimhan. Thank you very much for speaking with us, sir. My first question to you.
Namaste Anand, Jai Hind.
1.5 lakh crore, that kind of a fund that's been created for a sunrise sectors, innovation, technology space. How critical or important is it, sir?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely a wonderful announcement in the budget, and it certainly recognizes, and it's the Honorable Prime Minister's recognition that our innovation ecosystem is at an inflection point and is ready to take off and really become world-beating in a lot of ways in the coming years. So I think this is an extremely important aspect of the comprehensive ecosystem that he is building for the youth of India, that he is preparing for the youth of India to be able to pursue opportunities and succeed. So, credit and capital and financial resources always is an important part of the complex set of variables that are required for a youngster in the innovation ecosystem to pursue opportunities and succeed. And I'm extremely happy today that along with the National Research Fund, he has also put aside this type of outlay that will be available for the young entrepreneurs and the companies that are engaged in innovation and research.
There is also a fund for deep tech in defense, but there seems to be some ambiguity. What is this fund about? Can you shed some light, sir?
No, I have the same information as you have. I don't have any other information, Anand, but certainly, look, even if you don't get the granular information today, it is signaling something very significant. It is signaling that the Honorable Prime Minister and the Finance Minister recognize that this entire effort of the last 8-9 years with Digital India and Startup India and the innovation and the entrepreneurship bug that is today spreading across all the smaller towns of the country, that needs to be further catalyzed, that needs to be further fueled, and that has tremendous opportunity to grow even further. And resources and financial resources are an important part of that equation that is very, very important for the coming generation. So I think the fact that he has announced this is a clear recognition in my mind that he believes, as we certainly know that he believes, that our country and our innovation and research ecosystem is poised to take our country into no longer being a consumer of other technologies from other countries, but being a producer of technologies, products, devices, platforms and solutions for India and for the rest of the world.
Another signal from the interim budget or the vote on account budget, Rajiv ji, is Aayega to Modi hi. Now, is that confidence or is it arrogance?
No, I don't think it's a signal from the budget, it's a signal from the people of India. I think any Indian today, even if you are the most prejudiced or the most distracted, if you compare the last 10 years of Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, the decrepit, devastated economy that he inherited and what he has built out of the embers or the ruins that had been left behind by Manmohan Singh and Chidambaram into the 5th largest economy in the world, soon to be the 3rd largest economy in the world, a country that is today investing 11.5 crores of rupees on infrastructure, that is creating opportunities for coming generations, that is delivering governance in a way that has not been experienced by a country in all of the 65 years of independence before Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji strode into Delhi. So I think there is no need for anybody to read anything in the budget but a report card, and that report card of the last 10 years is what the people of India will look at and say, Aayega hi Modi hi and fir ek baar Modi Sarkar. So I think there is no need for me or anybody necessarily in government to say that. It is the people of India who are certainly saying that we want this journey to continue, we want the momentum and this velocity and acceleration of our country to continue, this good governance model that has been brought for the last 10 years and visible and impacted every Indian in some form, shape or the other, that they want this to continue. So I think that it's the people of India who are saying this, not the budget.
Rajiv ji, this 10 years of UPA versus 10 years of NDA, my final question, opposition voices, Congress supporting Congress voices are saying that under Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman ji and under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, worsened income inequality, flattened MSME sector, destroyed demographic dividend story of India, created fear of tax terrorism, drove farmers to the brink and pushed women out of the workforce and forced talent and brain drain out of Bharat. Now, these are the accusations made by the opposition. How would you respond?
Look, Anand, I mean, if you just look at that plethora of the rhetoric that you just read out that is coming from the opposition, to me, it's poetry because it sounds like a group of very, very frustrated people lashing out in all kinds of random directions, making these very weird, random statements. Today, just look at the issue of women empowerment and women participation in our workforce. It is at an all-time high. By any yardstick today, the women of India in 2024 are a very, very different, more empowered lot than they were any time before, 2014 or before. So I think these are things that they just put out there, and I think the promise that the Finance Minister, Honorable Finance Minister has made that she will put a white paper out so that let's cut through all these rhetoric and let's cut through all these smooth spin that the Congress puts out there. Let people of India really know what the 10 years of the UPA-India alliance was like from 2004 to 14, what they inherited from the Vajpayee government, a strong surplus economy, admitted to by P. Chidambaram in 2004 in July himself, and what they left in the country and the people of India in 2014, what Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji started with in 2014 and what he is leaving behind or what he has achieved in 2024. I think this is important conversation to be had. It should not be through the prism of this nonsensical rhetoric that the Congress has a great reputation for being absolutely easy and fast with the truth. I think we should put the truth out there. You should have many, many debates on this, Anand. You should call the congressmen. You should put the data and facts out there and let them squirm and answer the actual numbers and the truth rather than hide behind this veil of rhetoric and lies.
We are in the process of culling out the data and that data will be put out. Facts are facts. Whatever the data reflects, it will show whether it is kudos
Absolutely.
to the NDA or to the UPA. The data will show and it will talk very soon. Rajiv ji, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anand.
Namaste.
Really go there and break the bank, and that has not happened. Rural sector getting a lot of attention in this budget, so did women. And let's try to get some initial assessments. First from you, Mr. Chikkarmani. What do you make of Nirmala Sitharaman's vote on account budget?
It is as predicted. Earlier I had written, and in the morning we had discussed also on this, that she will continue to keep fiscal consolidation in mind. She'll keep it going. There will be no new tax policies or any kind of rebates, etc. coming, and she has done exactly that. This was a vote on account, and a vote on account is what she has delivered. I had also forecasted that she would talk about the past 10 years and give a vision for the next, for the future. She did that, though I feel it wasn't adequate. I had expected her to speak far more.
Well, viewers, the top news, of course, coming out of that is that there has been no monumental announcement in tune really with what was to be expected from the finance minister in a simple vote on account. Yes, there have been a lot of promises that have been made to various sections of the society, but fundamentally, if the middle class was expecting tax breaks, if corporate India was expecting tax breaks, that hasn't quite happened. Also, of course, the one headline that's probably going to stir the markets and perhaps already has is that the economy is on fiscal glide path, which is fundamentally important to those who are looking at the health of the economy. At least that's what we are being told. Let me bring you in on this, Gaurav. Just let me just bring you in on some of the points that perhaps you will take away from this. But let me tell you, before we move to our experts, very, very quickly, viewers, it has been a very workmanlike focus by Nirmala Sitharaman on charting out what is really going to be a disciplined approach to expenditure, keeping within very narrow limits and benchmarks that the government had set for itself. Revenues have exceeded expectations. Large number of important provisos been made to keep continuity as the basis really for moving forward, but fundamentally no big bang announcements coming through. So if there was an expectation that there would be a huge splurge before the elections, that hasn't quite happened, and that was perhaps expected in line really with some of the other budgets that have been put out there by the Modi government. People were expecting, of course, greater increase corrected to inflation in certain heads of direct benefit transfers to farmers, etc. That hasn't quite also happened. The Prime Minister had made it quite clear that this...
Joining us now is Union Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh. Dr. Jitendra Singh ji, namaste, Jai Hind. Thank you, sir. Thank you for speaking with us.
Namaste, namaste, Anand.
Sir, is this a confident budget or an arrogant budget? Let me start with that.
I think that's where Amitabh left. But anyway, having said that, I think it's confidence with resolve, determination and consistency. In a way, it's a continuity of the course that Prime Minister Modi charted out for himself soon after he took over as the Prime Minister on the 26th of May 2014. And he said in one of his earliest statements that those sections of society which did not receive the kind of attention that they deserved would be given due attention and brought at par with the rest of the
society. And that's what has happened today. If you go deeply into the different aspects, like for example, it's amazing, Pradhan Mantri Swanidhi Yojana, the street vendors receiving attention, nearly 70 lakh Labharthis. Now, it's part of never of the society had turned so indifferent to this section of society. You hardly gave a second look to a street vendor on the roadside. कोई पुलिस वाला आता था, धक्का मार के उसको चला जाता था. Today they are gaining financial support with respect. And that has mentioned, that has received mention in today's budget as well. And though it's an interim budget, it's also a reflection of the kind of direction that the overall budget is going to follow, which happens in the monsoon session in an election year. That again is a reflection of the confidence that is going to be the same Prime Minister, same government. It's not because of arrogance, but that is because the people's trust, and that is what they want to happen.
Because the opposition is saying that in the last 10 years of UPA versus 10 years of NDA, Dr. Jitendra Singh, women have been pushed out of the workforce, demographic dividend has actually not been tapped into. And there are a lot of criticisms coming in the way that unemployment is actually disguised right now. The numbers are not, the government is not forthcoming with the actual numbers. How would you respond to this? The UPA believes they had the economy in a far better shape and Bharat on a far better track than last 10 years under PM Narendra Modi.
I think this is if you go, today we live in an evidence-based era. If you go by statistical figures, leave alone the figures emanating from India, the global indices. We were just about 350 startups in 2014. Today we are nearly 1.5 lakh. We are ranked number 3 in the world ecosystem. It's not my strategy, it's not BJP strategy, it's not Prime Minister Modi's strategy. Global Innovation Index, we stood at 81. We have jumped 41 rank higher, we are today 40. This is again a global parameter. So, we were 10th economy. We were known as 5 fragile economies. Today we are known as 5 top. And we look forward, and and this has happened because the approach has been very innovative. Now, take the example of space, for example, that also received mention.
Yeah, space and deep tech and defense was
the earlier governments had confined. Yes, absolutely. We were confined in self-constrained shackles. We didn't move out. We had just one startup about 4 years back. After Prime Minister Modi liberated space, what the media fondly described as unlocking of the space, today we have 190 space startups from the private sector. We have an investment of at least 1 lakh crore just in about 8 months, beginning from 1st of April to 31st of December. So there have been a quantum fast track growth in the last few years because the approach has been innovative. We have liberated ourselves of the taboos of the past thanks to Prime Minister Modi's indulgence. And that is what has enabled us to move on in such a rapid pace.
My final question, Dr. Jitendra Singh, this election, somewhere the budget says you bring us back to power and we'll give you more, especially with the taxation aspects not being touched. Somewhere the message to the voter is bring us back and we'll give you more. Is that true?
The other way, to put it in another way, is that since we were constrained only to come out with an interim budget, so we are discharging that part of responsibility. The rest of the responsibility will happen when we come back.
But one thing that you think has been missed out, Mahila, this aspect of Mahila, the woman voter and the women of the country, is there a serious push in that direction? Do you see that reflecting even in the elections budget or the vote on account budget?
No, I think, no. On the other hand, I think both letter and spirit. Prime Minister has been reiterating time and again for the last few months that I know of only 4 sections of society, 4 castes. The Kisan or the Annadata, the Mahila, Yuva and a Gharib. And it has started showing dividends, 25 crore people coming out of poverty. And not only I would say coming out of poverty, I would not even see it from economical angle alone. It has given rise to a new kind of aspiration. You know, when you have 3 crore houses, kacha houses converted into pakka houses, and when I go to my constituency, people come to me and say, "Hamara wala reh gaya hai," to hum unko batate nahi banne wala hai. So it's given rise to an aspiration because we lived in a society which was indifferent to the thought of kacha or pakka. Even my ancestors lived in a kacha house. My grandmother and the forefathers used to even wash the kacha floor. We are reconciled. There's a section of society which is destined to live like that. So it's given rise to an aspiration. So and as they say, the definition of democracy is that wherever a child is born, the house is big or small, the household is big or small, the mother should have the confidence to dream that her child can grow up to rise to the highest level. So that kind of confidence now the Indian mother has gained. So that is a true essence of democracy is being realized now after 7 decades. So this entire financial transformation or economic transformation is also had an impact socially, mentally, psychologically, and also in the way, in the manner in which we look at each other democratically.
Dr. Jitendra Singh, thank you so much for your time. Always a pleasure speaking with you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anand. Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Namaste. Joining us now is Shri Amitabh Kant. Amitabh Kant ji, namaste. Jai Hind. Thank you very, very much for joining us. Such a pleasure to speak with you.
Yeah, thank you.
Your
thank
thoughts,
you, Anand.
Your thoughts on the interim budget and especially the allocations that have been made on the 4 pillars that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has spoken about very often: the youth, Mahila, the Kisan and the poor.
So, Anand, first of all, I must say it's a very disciplined budget within the boundaries of being an interim budget. It's fiscally very prudent, and the fact that it brings down the fiscal deficit to 5.1% and lays down the roadmap for bringing it down to 4.5% is quite remarkable to my mind, because this will reduce government's borrowing, it will bring down the interest rate and enable private sector to get money from the market at a much lower rate of interest. And this will enable a greater kickoff of the private sector investment in the economy. That is remarkable to my mind. And then the continued focus on capex expenditure to 3.4%. It's on a high base level of 3.3, which was still last year, but it adds on around 11 lakh crores to capex expenditure. And I've been always a great believer of focus on infrastructure rather than a consumption-led strategy growth. So this infrastructure will drive growth, and I think again it will now crowd in private sector investment in big ways. So these are 2 remarkable features. But overall, if you look at this budget, it's very inclusive. I mean, the government strategy always has been to saturate schemes. So when I was implementing the aspirational district program, the focus of the government was that you saturate with everything, whether it was roads, whether it was water, whether it was toilets, whether it was houses, and across every section of the society. So everybody with all the government schemes possible. But the remarkable thing about this budget is this huge focus on women, youth, farmers, and those and the poor, and therefore the government focuses on growth with inclusivity. So inclusive growth is critical as India grows and expands into a $35 trillion economy by the time during the Amrit Kal period. It must have inclusive growth, and therefore this huge focus on these segments of the society and women in particular, the formalization of the economy and women taking leadership. And during G20, Prime Minister's focus was also on women-led development, where we were able to bring consensus amongst all countries. And therefore, this budget is path-breaking in many ways.
The pressure of geopolitics, because the outlays as far as energy security and energy outflows is concerned, subsidies is concerned, has really ballooned. Now, is that going to be a concern in the coming year? Because we are surrounded by conflicts all around us, and it is having an impact on us.
Yeah. So there are several fault lines in the world. The Russia-Ukraine crisis, which is protracted. Then you have the Israel-Palestine crisis. The global supply chains are in a spin even now. And therefore, energy prices is a major issue. But the challenge for India is that it is pushing for green energy in a very big way. And it's important that we use our climatic conditions to go solar, to go wind, which this budget talks about, to go into green hydrogen in a very big way. And actually, by the time we achieve Amrit Kal in 2047, we should be an exporter of energy, not an importer of energy. And this is very much feasible. No other country in the world has the climatic condition which India has. And our size and scale enables you to do to large scale. And I'm truly delighted that this budget really pushes for solar rooftops, because the 1 crore people who will benefit out of this, their benefit will be in the region of 15,000 to 18,000 rupees, because 300 units of electricity will be in that range. But more important is pushing for biogas, pushing for electric vehicles. All these are sunrise areas of growth.
Yes.
So when you look at it in the context of that 1 lakh crore for private sector for R&D, the objective should be to really drive deep tech in this country, and deep tech will enable you to get into all these new areas of growth where India can be a global champion.
Deep Tech Fund has been talked about. There is a clear allocation for also buying of wind energy from external offshore wind energy funding. So there is that's been spoken about. My final question to you, Amitabh Kantji, is this a confident budget or an arrogant budget? Somewhere the message is that we are coming back to power and we'll tell you more in July. Is that confidence or is it arrogance?
No, I think it's a very, very confident budget. It's a confident budget because of the work that has been done on ground. It's a confident budget because of macroeconomic fundamentals. It's a confident budget because of the infrastructure that has been created. And to my mind, it's a confident budget because you've been able to provide houses, electricity, water supply, build roads. You've made a difference to the lives of citizens in the country, and that's why it's a confident budget.
Amitabh Kantji, thank you very much for speaking with us. Always a pleasure, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Co-presented by...
It perhaps tells you that the government is quite confident of its electoral prospects going forward. It did not want to risk any of the hard work, the legacy that they have really built up in trying to sort of put together what has been a fundamentally disciplined outlook to expenditure. So that is something that it's quite clear that the government didn't want to sort of squander, and therefore we have seen the government sticking very, very closely to some of its own expectations of itself, especially when it comes to fiscal consolidation. Let me just walk you through some of the points that, of course, have been made by Nirmala Sitharaman in that budget. She's talked about coming back, increasing the ease of living, enhancing India's energy security, mass transport augmentation, middle class, especially the younger middle class, a housing plan for the middle class which is going to be sort of unrolled, a capex outlet hiked by 11%, which is a fundamental headline, women emancipation, especially focusing on women health, a large number of announcements under that, 50-year interest-free loans for the private sector is something that will enthuse a large number of those who are looking to start up companies, etc. Free ration for 80 crore Indians and 517 new routes to enable passenger travel. So that is something that the government has put out there, apart from, of course, focusing on some of its achievements. The first half, the first 25 minutes of the speech focused on how the government has actually come out there and improved ease of living and, of course, the top line numbers of the government. Let's go across and get some reactions from the CI. R. Dinesh is there with us. Mr. Dinesh, how do you see the government, vote on account?
CEOs move out. Start. Okay, start.
Start? So,
good evening. It was the budget before the ballot, the 10th and final budget of the Modi Sarkar 2.0 before, of course, general elections this summer. One thing must be credited to the finance minister. She could have gone the populist, welfarist way, given that there are elections to be won. But she stuck to fiscal prudence. It's 5.8% for this fiscal, and the fiscal glide path to 4.5% by 25-26. That will be followed. But at the same time, the criticism, particularly from the opposition, is that there was no big-ticket announcement in this budget, no major changes to tax slabs or rates, and that is something that the middle class always hopes for. One big takeaway has been on capital expenditure, which will continue to increase in the rate of knots. But the bigger question is this: how will Budget 2024 be rated? How will the economic report card of Modi Sarkar for the last 10 years, how will that look like? We have a full panel of experts from the fields of